Chapter 12, Leadership and Followership. Leadership. When you think about leadership, we think about influencing or providing direction. So leadership is the process of guiding and directing the behavior of people. You have formal leadership, people that are put in that position. Informal leadership, where you have people that act as leaders, but they're not officially that leader. And followership, which are those that are being guided, subordinates, employees. Cotter was a leadership theorist, and he had positions on leadership and management. Leadership and management are two different things, but are very much related. Management focuses on getting things done, the planning, organizing, the controlling. Leadership is more about creating change, motivation, setting direction. Management versus leadership. Leaders agitate for new change. Managers advocate stability. Strategic leaders are those that use both leadership qualities and management qualities. As we know, many managers are not good leaders. We go through a series of different approaches and theories to leadership. One of the first ones was the early trait theory. This theory indicated your physical attributes, your characteristics. Without them, you couldn't be a leader. Behavioral theories. Lewin, Ohio State, and Michigan. What Lewin talked about were three distinctive styles: autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire. Ohio State did a study and identified two types of leadership behaviors. Initiating structure was more getting that job done or task-oriented. Consideration was looking more at developing relationships. Michigan State also did a study. Their task-oriented portion, production-oriented, and they determined the other leadership style was employee-oriented. Again, looking at task versus relationship. In this grid, is a leadership style instituted by Blake and Morton, and the actual grid you see is trademarked. They identified a series of types of leadership from country club, authority compliance, opportunistic, paternal-maternal, team, middle of the road, impoverished. And if you look at the grid, the x-axis is concerned for results, y-axis concerned for people, and depending on how you move, you get to the certain coordinates that design or does display a particular type of leadership. Fiedler's contingency theory. A lot has been written about Fiedler. He basically looked at theory as contingency or based upon. So you basically looked at a situation, a leader's style, and you match the right style to the right situation. Fiedler used a particular scale that he created to indicate whether you as a person, as a leader, were relationship-oriented or task-oriented. How you scored on that scale indicated your style of leadership. Situational favorableness. When you're looking at your situation, you look at, starting with the bottom, leader-member relations. Are they good or poor? Task structure, as to whether the task being given was clear or unclear, ambiguous. And position power. Is the person leading you someone who has legitimate authority to fire and hire, or is he someone that does not have that power? This is not in your book. There's a different chart in your book, but I found this one to be much easier to understand. So with Fielder's contingency theory, you looked at the group. You looked at the three sections: leader members, task structure, and position power. Depending on how they fell, you could end up with 1 through 8 categories. What's been studied in his theory is that if you fell into the first 3 categories and the last, number 8, if you were low LPC, you were a better fit of a leader for that, or middle for the lower 3. High, meaning more people-oriented, worked best in categories 4 through 7. Path Glory. This was proposed by House. You would have situations. There could be different leadership styles: directive, supportive, participated, and achievement-oriented. You would have followers with characteristics. You would have workplace situations with characteristics. And basically, looking at all that, you would determine your leadership style and then follow the path perceptions: effort, performance, reward, that linkage, and your followers would reach goals, satisfaction, rewards, and benefits. Broom, Yeto, and Yago decision model. This helped leaders to figure out how should they work with their participants in decision making, and they would choose the right section. Maybe they'd help them decide, consult individually, consult as a group, facilitate, or delegate. What's interesting about this chart, it's in your book, and the little tiny white box that's easier to read in the book talks about going across this model, starting from the left to the right, starting with the problem statement. And you funnel down, and based on those characteristics, you determine whether you're using a style to help them decide, to delegate, to facilitate. Situational leader is also a theory where you are looking at your followers. Are they competent? Are they willing? Are they unwilling but competent? Are they willing, not competent? Based on that group's readiness, follower readiness, you would choose appropriate leadership styles such as telling, selling, participating, and delegating. Leader-member exchange. This is a situation where you have leadership involved with in-groups and out-groups. In-groups will tend to have more positive results than the out-groups. Out-groups tend to be more distant from the leader and will be connected with formal rules and regulations. Substitutes for leadership. When are the times when you don't need a leader? You like the task. You get performance feedback. You know how to do it. You don't need direction. The team works really well together. There are controls, customers. Those are times when leaders can be substituted by these types of situations. Inspirational leadership. 3 types: transformational, charismatic, and authentic. Transformational leadership is composed of 4 sections. Charismatic. A leader's personal abilities and talents have profound effect on the followers and have that ability to have great influence. Interestingly, charismatic leadership tends to relate and relies heavily on reverent power, revering that leader. Authentic leadership takes a little of all of the inspirational leadership, and they act very consistent to their value. Authentic translating to real, and they basically build high performance, optimism, positive influence. Some emerging issues are those that are existing: emotional intelligence, knowing how to manage emotions, Trust, very important with integrity and leadership. Servant leadership, it's the philosophy that you lead by serving others. And a newer one, abusive supervision, which seems to be creeping into the horizon. How do men and women differ in leadership? Do they lead different? In general, they found more successful leaders when women tend to take on more male-oriented attributes. Women tend to be definitely more leaning towards relationship type leadership. And one of the problems today is some companies have a glass cliff. They will tend to put a woman into a leadership position that's like a no-win situation, so they will tend to fail. Types of followers: effective, alienated, sheep, yes people, survivors. Visually, your effective followers are independent thinkers and active. Yes people aren't really independent thinkers, but they're active, they're around, yes. Sheep don't tend to think independently, and they're very passive. They kind of stay in the background. Alienated, they think and can be independent thinkers, but they're very passive. And survivors will do what it takes. Every manager would like to have every follower be a dynamic follower. They're very responsible in their job. They effectively manage relationships with their boss, can self-manage. They can be trusted by their boss and be a great advisor and work to improve. Cultural differences. Leadership in general tends to take on, leadership theory tends to take on that Americanization. So as you go into other situations, you have to realize that some cultures don't follow the same logic as we do. Traditional Protestant work values, usually meaning work hard, get rewarded in heaven. Workers from other countries base their work values on very different sets of beliefs. So what are my guidelines? Appreciate unique attributes, talents, predispositions of my leaders. Choose leaders that won't destroy the organization. That would be a wise one. Have that relationship portion in some part of your leadership. Apply leadership properly for different settings. And usually a good leader was also a good follower.